Good evening, my people. I greet all of you well. Uh, and I wish you compliments of the season. I know say yesterday in Christmas, uh, hope say on get to enjoy Merry Christmas. So very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year in advance to all of our people where they out there, where join us. I know say on join us soon by the grace of God. Uh, Today, excuse me. A very special guest I get for you. Na legend, the lady, he get legendary status. A lot of us not to recognize or recollect the name. But when you hear some of the work with this, some of the music with this that lady don't do, you go remember her well. We go remember her well. You understand? So na so it day. So her name na Sandra Izsadore. Sandra Izsadore. She does sing with a lot of people. She don't dey in the industry too. She still dey work with people. She don't enter this our current Afrobeat way with the play now. She be person wey be say she dey into music. She no dey here na Bodo in America in day, but she go be our guest today. What I will do be say, before we start anything, I go just play one small music from I'll play one track like that from her. So make it a feel out. She did okay. The production, not be small to yourself. Okay, may we go. Please, everybody where they there, where they listen, make you let me know whether you hear uh our sound. I go wait small before I play the music, because I want monitor am with this other phone where I carry at the come. Okay, make I play the music. Maybe see where we go. And this one, I can call run. I will soon go bring our guest, the lady Sandra Izsadore. Happy Boxing Day to all of them. Yeah, don't go invite our guest now, a very special guest. This one I they call run. featuring Aragon. Anybody listening, can you please, anybody watching, can you please message me whether they hear the music while I play? Thank you. Our guest stay on our way. We don't invite them. She will join us soon. Yes, so as the matter they go, we get our very special guest today, the legendary Sandra Izsadore. Izsadore. She don't work with a lot of artists, including Fela, Nicola Kuti, Ginger Baker, and all those. Now, veteran inside the business, so no be today, no be young person at all. So we dey wait for her make it join us. When she join us, we will start our interview. So make it bear with me here. The only thing where I want to know whether the music where I play just now, whether the person where they listen, whether they hear the music. I want us to make sure say they never block our music when we dey play. You understand? I dey wait for my guest and they come. Now play another track for you as we dey wait for our guest. This one na one special track wey she do. This one na one special track wey she do for the NSAS campaign. Very, very, very strong lyrics. Listen to her. Yeah, we still dey wait for our guest to join us. She will join us soon. Abeg, bear with us. Okay, anybody wait they watch us, make it go to the chat column, message us, let us know whether you dey hear the music where they play. I mean whether they don't block am again. I need to know, please. Anybody watching, can you please message me so that we can take it from there? Be like say wetin my guest don't arrive. My guest don't arrive. Yes, so my guest don't arrive. Hello, how you doing, my sister? How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing very well on this Boxing Day. Blessed to be here, above ground because we've lost so many. And, I just like to acknowledge Kolokbo,
Absolutely.
who is now an ancestor. And it goes very deeply with me because Kolokbo was the one who taught me the lyrics and the phrasing for that hit single that fella wrote for me entitled Upside Down.
Honestly, it's amazing how the mighty are falling, to be honest. I mean, I really, really feel for you. And Mr. Kolobo was a very, very, very wonderful guitarist. A lot of us probably don't know that. And the kind of guitar way they play, that way they dance fella music, we don't know, say, now those kind bros, them, now then they play all the bedouin they hear for fella music. And it is very interesting to know, say, a great lady like you benefit from a well. As we do for WAZOBIA show, welcome to the show. Happy Boxing Day. Because for Nigeria, we they greet people for everything. If person himself get headache, we go say happy headache. To be honest with you, my sister, we they always start with introduction. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about. We want to start from the very beginning, the background. Good to know, because in your case, madam, you've got a mighty, mighty, mighty big story to tell. You come from a long way. You found your roots and your culture and tradition. You never played with it, and we did really, really proud of you. We did really. A lot of us that were born and bred over there and brought up there, we don't even know. We don't value our culture. And
Yes.
I mean, it's true, my sister. You agree with? I agree, and you agree with me. Now, what we want to know, first of all, is tell us everything, because we be I'm a boy here, we want to know everything.
I don't know if we have enough time to tell everything, but that would take a very long time. But I guess you can say it all started with me from the age of 6, when my parents moved into an all-white neighborhood. And it was at that early age of 6 that I started to become aware that things were different for people who looked like me. And it made me wonder when I was going to change, when would my skin become white? And when would it become straight, my hair? And, when would I start to look like the others, the other children in the neighborhood? But that did not happen. And my parents, they never told me the truth about America. They never taught me that because of my skin tone and my kinky hair, that people would not like me. I didn't know that. So I started watching television, and when I watched television, there was nothing positive. There were no positive images of people who looked like me. And when we went to Africa, when if they were in Africa, it was Tarzan, and he was the king of the jungle. And, you know, it was like all the Black Africans were servant to Tarzan. And inside, innately, I knew there was more to it. I knew something was more, because this could not be. And then they always had derogatory images in the cartoons. They never showed us in a positive image. So I just, in my own young mind, said the only way I'm going to know the truth is to meet a real African. That it would be me meeting an African, encountering an African, and that African would teach me about myself, because I knew innately what I was seeing in the images were wrong.
Carry on, ma'am.
You know, everything about us was wrong. We, you know, after a while, I started to realize that everything that had been taught to me from religion, from history, it had all been a lie, perpetrated, I would say, and facilitated by the television. So all of
I like that definition of the television, television. I love that.
Yeah, it's a television.
I'm going to use that a lot now.
So it was a television that taught us understanding. And I later found out I needed to overstand, because we have been understanding everything. And if you grasp the words to mean you have not reached the level where you need to reach. So at this point in my life, I'm trying to overstand a whole lot and stop understanding it.
Thank you. So from your younger days and the school days and all that, when did you actually realize that, you know what, I love music and I'm gonna go into music? How did you fall in love with music from your early years?
The very first encounter of music I'll never forget. I was 5 years old, and I was downstairs in the living room of our home, and I heard these drums, these percussions. And in hearing those percussions, I just started to dance and move, because, you know, then at the age of 5, I didn't understand the power of the drum. I didn't understand the spiritual connection of the drum. But I remember I was 5 and I heard those drums and I saw my shadow on the wall. And so I danced with myself. And if you know anything about the Western music, Western world, European, over here in the West, or any other parts of the world, they don't have rhythms and sounds like they have in Africa. So it was something about those sounds that resonated within me that made me move. And that was another thing. So I would say age 5, first time hearing drum rhythms and patterns. And then age 6, culture shock of moving into the all-white neighborhood and discovering myself, or beginning to discover myself.
Okay. Now, after that, then, obviously, like our parents, they always do, they will convince you, say, my friend, leave that music alone. Is that your book? I want you to study. You must study. You must study. So I can assume that at some point you left the music to concentrate on education. So while you were in school studying, were you doing that? How did you manage to juggle your love for music and your education that obviously was mandatory and compulsory as far as our parents are concerned?
Well, what happened, I, since I couldn't find out the truth about our story, I, I, when I attended college and I needed a major, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do, I decided I said, well, I'm going to study anthropology. It sounded good, and plus it would give me our story and the history of man. So I studied anthropology, and in studying anthropology here in the Western world, that's when I also found out that in the discoveries of paleontology, that Africans were the oldest. The bones that had been found were the oldest. So I was like, So that started me on a path. Then later on in school, while they're in college, demonstrations, other conscious Black people were coming forward. And I think around that time, they had movements here. I think this was after, yes, the Panther Party, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the civil disturbance in America. It was starting to come forward, and people were starting to realize I'm lost for words here. What was happening here in America, the imbalance between Black and white. I started to see the disenfranchisement of Black people, the discriminatory practices that were done, and the lack of equality in this country. And I was like, well, why? And it just sent me on a road, and I knew that my connection was to Africa. And I felt like if I could just get to Africa, I would start to learn and know the truth. So my biggest desire, rather than to assimilate and become a part of everybody else, I wanted to embrace my Blackness. So when other people of my race were going to Europe and seeking out Europe, I was seeking Africa, because I knew these people look like me and I look like them, so we must be related. And that's how it all started. It sent me on a mission. And music was already a love. And then in my early childhood, I heard the first African album when it was Olatunji. And hearing Olatunji and the rhythms of Africa, it just resonated with me. So while everybody else was trying to assimilate, I was trying to identify with Africa. And so it just sent me on a mission. And I just knew once I had met an African that I would learn our story, and I would not be deceived anymore by his story.
Okay, what about the name Izsadore? That is a very popular Edo name in Nigeria.
I know that.
So people will look at that and think, oh, are you of African parentage, or you of African, or you of Nigerian parentage, to be precise? I mean, how do you explain that to us?
Okay. Well, how it happened is that the name Izsadore and the way it's spelled is a name that my husband gave me with the Izsadore. He gave me that spelling, and it was a play off of a group that we had. It was a female group that, you know, a recording group. And the title of that group was In Trance. And it was spelled Entranz. So I said, okay, entrance is a door. So Izsadore is like an opening or the entrance. I am the door to the entrance, or that was the play. It was just a play with words.
Okay, at what point did you actually fall in love? Did you actually start playing music or start singing professionally?
When I met Fela, here in America, I had already, I was doing like nightclub, cabarets, you know, jazz clubs, and you go in and you sit in. So I was doing more like cabaret music. And then I met Fela, and we both had this love for music. We both loved jazz. So we started hanging out at the clubs here in LA. And when Fela found out that at the time that he met me, I was in acting school at Columbia Studios. I was taking classes in Hollywood. And he knew that not only that I was dancing with this African dance troupe called Sawaba. And Mamadou was the head of that group. And it was Fassa. Fassa was from Nigeria. Mamadou, I believe, was from Senegal. And then there was Aliso Timkulu from South Africa. So it was 3 African men who had come together from 3 African countries, and Juno Lewis, who was a drum maker from, he's American, from Louisiana, who played with a lot of the jazz greats. So I was already working with dance troupe called Sawaba. Americans were, you know, those of us who recognized ourselves and embraced our Blackness were identifying with Africa. So in our own way, we were happy, and we were able to do shows. We were able to do shows and present it as best we could. It wasn't like the real authentic African dancers, you know, but we did our best.
Fantastic. Now that brings us to the main question, the real issue, what we in Nigeria will call the cocoa. How did you meet Fela Aníkúlápó Kútì? How did you, was it like pure coincidence, or were you introduced by someone, or was it a matter of by fire by force, I must meet this man today?
You know, I speak about all these things in my book, Fela and Me.
Yeah.
But how it actually happened, Juno Lewis, the drummer maker, had gone to this club in Los Angeles called the Bill of Fare. And while he was at the Bill of Fare, he heard this African group. And the African group that he heard was Kula Labitos. And when Juno saw me again, he was like, Sandra, you got to come and see this group. You've got to come and see them. They're here from Africa. And he was going on and on. And I said, okay, Juno, all right. At that point, I was kind of discouraged because I had met in school different students that were here, exchange students. And apparently, the exchange students all came from remote areas, or I could say rural areas. And as Stella referred to it, from the bush, you know?
That's right.
And they, you know, they were very programmed, I could say. Suit, shirt, and tie, white Jesus, and very brainwashed. So I knew that the people that I had met, they didn't know nothing. They knew less than I did. So I was like, by the time Juno says, oh, come on, you got to see this group, I was like, nah, you know, I was really discouraged. But Juno insisted. He was so adamant about it, even though I had a car and I could drive. He knew that it would be by force. So he came to my mother's home. He picked me up and he says, you're going with us today. So I got in the car reluctantly, like, oh, yeah, right. And he took me to the Ambassador Hotel. And when it was a big NAACP gathering in the garden at this really nice hotel on Wilshire Boulevard. So when I walked into the hotel, I looked up on the stage, and as I was looking up, fella was looking down, and our eyes made contact. I went ahead, I sat down at the table, and they played that day, but I couldn't really hear what was, you know, being played because the sound system wasn't that great. But afterwards, when they had an intermission, Juno introduced me to fella. Yeah. And at the time that I met him, he was Fela Ransom Kuti.
That's right.
And we left. We left the venue that day. We left together. And the rest is our story, because once we were introduced, we connected, we clicked, and it just evolved from there.
Oh, fantastic. What a way to meet. And I bet there's no regret whatsoever. I mean, are we going to go back to your story with Fela? Because from reading from different sources, you get headlines like Sandra actually changed the whole dimension of Fela Kuti and Africa 70. It was like you played a very prominent role in his life, and the levels just changed from when he met you. And there was a story of him in Jamaica as well. There's a lot of stories around that era that I don't understand, that I would like you to explain to us. But what I want to do first, we always do that on this show. We always shout out all the people that are viewing us. Monica Mudupe, my darling sister, thank you very much for tuning in. Happy Boxing Day to you. Dunisho Day, my sister from another mother, thanks for tuning in as usual. And my very good friend, Pasu Johnson, thank you so much for tuning in. And all the others who are watching and whose name we've not called, we really thank you very much. Our guest today is Sandra Izsadore, who was a first Black American lady, in fact, the only lady to sing with Fela. Am I right?
That's correct. Well, then, you know, he did have his wives in the background. They were always the background singers. But I am the only.
When I'm talking of actually featuring in a track or making a record or making a, well, we call image singles.
I'm the only one.
Absolutely.
I'm the only one.
I just want to quickly do something again. I want to very, very quickly check because we are being streamed by we're being streamed on Facebook, and we do have this history of being blocked because of copyright issues. So I'm going to try and play Upside Down, a little bit of it, do a taster, and then my viewers will message me to let me know if they can hear the music or not. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you can hear this music, just send me a quick message. I'm going to try and play the track now that featured our legendary special guest, Sandra, Izsadore, and Fela and Nicola Kokuti.
May I interrupt?
Sorry? Yeah, please do.
Facebook should not block that. That is my vocal. And that is my song.
I'm playing it now. Can you hear it, ma'am?
I can't hear it.
Well, I am playing it now, and if you cannot hear it, that means it's blocked. And our viewers will let me know in a minute if they can hear. I don't know why they always do that. Even when I'm interviewing the owner of the music, they always do that.
Wow, that's deep. But you know, I find that anytime it's something of consciousness, if it's something of consciousness and something of truth, Facebook will block if they don't want the masses to become aware.
It's so annoying, ma'am. It's so annoying. But I can tell you what they cannot do is they cannot stop my viewers from going to YouTube and just go to YouTube and search for Upside Down, Sandra and Fela Kuti. Just type in Upside Down, Sandra. As soon as you start saying Sandra, it will come up, Sandra and Fela Kuti, and you can go and listen to that track. You know the most incredible thing about that track? You had that track in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken, 77, am I correct?
No, it was 70. It was recorded in 76. Well, Fela was playing it live in 76. And, you know, and we recorded it in 76. So I'm sure after 76, he did not play that song anymore because, you know Fela's history. And Mason Oruru has written a book, Afrobeat Got Soul, and he's explained it very well and very clearly about the music and how it has transformed and how Fela, once he recorded a song, he never played it again. But yes, it may have been released in 77, but it was recorded in 1976 in Nigeria.
And you know what? Every single thing you spoke about then is still happening now.
It's very painful. It's very painful because as an African-American ADOS from the diaspora, for coming to Nigeria, for being one of the first seeds to return from my lineage, you know, from that slave mentality to come back and go forward to Africa, all I ever wanted was for Africa to become aware and not be exploited. So my whole mission was to wake up, to wake up people. And it started with Fela. It started with Fela letting him know our story. And not only letting him know our story, letting him know the greatness of African kings and African queens from Africa. All of these stories that had been buried in the library, because this is where the truth has been hidden. The truth has always been hidden in the books, but most people don't want to read. They don't want to research. They just want to believe what the white man or the Englishman or whatever man has told them. They don't want to know our story. Our story has been stolen from us, and they don't teach it in school. They will never teach us about ourselves. They never teach us about our ancestors. So if this is information you want to know, if you want to know the truth, then you go and you dig deep. You go into the library where they have buried all of their lies, you know? And they buried the lies in the library, and then when they write the books, they change the story. So, you know, something else that I just recently became aware of is that whoever the conqueror is in a war, that's when the story changed. That's when his story comes in. But he does everything to negate the original story. That's why they burn books. That's why they destroy art. But see, they failed because it's true. Even in the worst of lies, like most Black people have been given, you've got to have some truth in that story in order for that lie to perpetrate itself, you know? So if you go into the museums and the Egyptian artifacts and everything, you will find that these are Black people, you know? And if you get an old Bible, in that Bible, it says he has hair like lamb's wool and feet like burnished bronze. Who on earth, other than the Black race, have this kinky, woolly hair and this dark, burnished bronze skins? And if you really check the story, you will find that we were everywhere, even in the Americas. But they don't teach you that in school. You have to go outside and you have to go to the libraries, and then you have to research and put these things together to know the truth. And then the scientific evidence and data is there. But most people will, and especially Black people, they believe what they're told.
Thank you very much. That was deep. That was really deep. And it's true. It's a shame that after how many decades now, if anything, instead of improving, I think it's getting even worse. It's absolutely unbelievable and painful, really painful. I mean, what are people, excuse me, what are people like us doing here? I mean, we should be back there. Well, but it's just so depressing back there. It's really terrible. Going back to the story, going back to your career, and especially your relationship with Fela. A lot of people would say that, I read in so many different places that apart from duetting with him, working with collaboration is what we use these days. Apart from collaborating with him on that track, apart from doing that, I also found, I've also picked up information that you did a lot of stuff for him. I mean, were you managing him? Did you do administrative stuff for him? Did you promote him? Did you link him up with people? Did you join his team? Did you go on tour with him? Was the likes of Jamaica getting jealous of you and not wanting you to be as close to Fela as you wanted to be? We want to hear the gist about your relationship with Fela. We want to know everything.
Well,
please.
All of the above, everything that you just mentioned, that's what it was when he was here. At the time that fella was in this country, like I said, I was in school. I was working. So to me, meeting an African man, I was supposed to be learning from fella. And it was when fella made a statement one night. And that statement that he made was, he said that Africans were very stupid. And I mean, when he said that, it crushed me. And that's when it all began, because in my room, in my mother's house, my mother and father's house, I had all of the African kings and queens on my wall. I had the leaders of the Panther Party. I mean, these were all things that I had learned. And I had embraced the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the Muslim religion, which was a little bit different than Islam that we know today, because Islam here in America taught us consciousness, taught us about ourselves. So all this information that I had, which wasn't a whole lot because I have much more today, that information that I had, I wanted to share that information with fella. And I was always sharing it, giving him books. And after that particular day, when fella said that Africans were stupid, and I became somewhat, I don't know. I know it was like I went into a state of rage with him. That after that, fella never said anything, So I didn't know. I never knew until 1976 when I was in Nigeria, and the reporter from the New York Times came, and I just happened to be in the room when the reporter was there interviewing fella. And when they asked him where and when, and he pointed it all back at me. Because, as you know, most people will never acknowledge the source from an idea or something that they learn. Most people's egos will not allow it. And fella was one of the few people that actually acknowledged the fact that I had been the one who taught him. And I was like in a state of shock, because as far as I was concerned, I was just sharing information for growth and development, so he would take that information and teach someone else. So this underground movement, where each one has taught one, now I'm beginning to see the seeds, because there's plenty of seeds that are sprouting now. And they're sprouting and they're bringing consciousness, because they know. People like M. Josh, people like Aragons, people like Burna, Tiwa Savage, Niniola. I'm listening to these artists now, and they each one, even Wizkid, Davido, they all acknowledge and give recognition to fella, so much so that now here in America, you have American artists looking over in Africa. Wow, what is this sound that's coming out of Africa? So, and I've always said, and America is greedy. She's a greedy country. And greed has been the facilitator that has created this empire, okay? It wasn't anything ethical that was done. If you do the research and study his story, then you will find that what I'm saying is true, But I know that now that the young African Americans, they're hearing these sounds and they're incorporating it with our mainstream audience. And it's starting to change. Awareness, people are starting to learn, people are starting to know. And I want to say this right here. All the songs that Fela ever wrote, the genius that he was, all of those songs come from a true story, or it comes from him, his pride of his people. He always fought for his people. Fela could have left Nigeria a long time ago and lived a better life, but he chose not to because he wanted to make change and bring about awareness through music.
That's true. That's absolutely true. I definitely grew up with Fela's children as friend. Some of his children were my good friend, and I used to go see Fela rehearse and perform and everything. And I mean, I learned a lot personally from the legendary Fela Nicola Pokuti. Later, I mean, I couldn't believe it one morning, and my father was getting ready. I was in secondary school, early stages secondary school, and my father was getting ready for work, and he was listening to Fela's music. I think it was Shuffling and Smiling, and my father was cracking up in the room. I mean, he was listening to it, and I was combing his hair, and he was absolutely cracking up. And I'm like, oh God. I've never seen my father in such a good mood, getting ready to go to work. Normally, the abject dictator that he was, bless him, he'll be barking out orders. But he was in such a relaxed mood and he was laughing his head off. And guess what? When he came back home that night, he had that record with him. It was a good thing he had it with him because I stole it from him eventually.
But,
Right.
you know, that's the beauty of Fela's music, because he told so much truth in the music. Not only did he tell truth in the music, you had a good rhythm, you danced, you laughed, and you learned. For those people that were really listening, as he said, those that have ears, let them hear. And not everyone that have ears are really hearing what's being said, you know, and that to me is what's important. Music must have a message. And Fela said, let music be your weapon, you know, and the music, if you listen, it will teach you and let you learn and let you know what you're dealing with. And then it's up to you to make a conscious change. But see, here's another problem. Nigeria has never had a true African leader that I know of. I don't know any true African leaders that work for the masses, you know, and what's going on in Nigeria now is just a travesty, you know. It's very painful for me, extremely painful.
Listen, all I can do is, I know I don't have to, but I can only apologize on behalf of our so-called leaders. You know, here is a lady who's so into our roots and who has gone above and beyond to try and marry into our African heritage and culture. She chose Nigeria, and we have let her down, unfortunately. Our leaders have let you down, and it's a shame. But you know what? You have still kept in touch with music. And what you do now is, you know, what the kids of today now call Afro beats, which I sometimes, most of the time, disagree with. I think the king of Afrobeat and the only brand of Afrobeat is Fela's music. But what they play now, they've decided to a certain extent, the reason I agree with them to a certain extent is they've named it Afrobeat, maybe in honor of their hero, their role model, who is Fela Nicola Kuti. I think they've decided to do that in order to carry on with his legacy. They can never be Fela, but if you see the likes of Whiskey, Davido, like you said, Burna Boy, a lot of them have performed in the shrine. A lot of them are introducing Fela's music. Fela's got something called second bass. Fela uses a bass guitar, and he also uses a bass drum. People do not know that a bass drum exists. And when Fela infuses, look, in his days, and we're talking about the early 70s, up to when Fela passed, his band was probably the largest band you'll ever see. And from his position on stage, with a blink of an eye, he controls everything going on behind it. Am I right to say that?
You're absolutely correct.
If somebody makes an iota of a mistake, he gets a very stern look from Fela, and he readjusts immediately. That is how much Fela was just in control. He was the first person I would see, and then I may have seen a lot more. There may have been a lot before him, but he was the first person I would see that is playing multi-tunes on the keyboard with one hand.
Mm-hmm.
So people do not know. People do not know the genius of this man. People do not know unless you've actually seen it first time. That man is a genius. Well, he was a genius. I use is because I still don't believe he's God. It's very difficult, like, to believe someone of that reputation, someone of that is a God. It's not dead. Fela is not there. He's there. Now you are now you still carry on with your musical profession, and you could have gone into opera if you wanted. You could have gone into singing R&B, hip hop. You could have gone into singing reggae, rap music, but you still kept in touch with Afrobeats. And it's a shame. I cannot. If you go and Google Sandra, Izsadore, you can see the spelling there on your screen. Go and Google, or go on YouTube and search. You would see a lot of tracks she's doing. She's doing a lot of tracks today, a lot of modern day Afrobeat with the likes of Rahab, the lyrics, with the likes of Aragons, and so many other people. And I'm telling you, this lady here has made some absolutely brilliant music. It's a shame, One of my friends, Jossy, says he could hear the music a tiny little bit. Let us see. I would really want to play Upside Down. Let us try again and see whether people can hear it. We really need to give this a try. Let me try again. Can you hear it, Mom?
I can't hear it, but I know it.
Yeah, my friend Bossy Johnson, I'm sure you're listening. Let me know if you can hear it. It's really very loud there, so definitely you must be able to hear it. Yeah, it's a shame, but I don't know why we're getting that. We used to play music. People can hear my voice, obviously. You understand? And I'm playing the music from here, and people cannot hear the music because the music has been.
Well, there's other music too, because that was Afro beat. Yeah. And then of late, I've done Afro beats with Run Run, and I featured Aragons, and Oh My, I featured Aragons, which has to do with what's going on in Nigeria, the SARS movement, the travesty that took place at the latter part of last year. It's just, it's really disheartening when I know the genius of Nigeria and the genius of Nigerians to be so creative, and not only so creative, but academically, and scholars, I mean, doctors, lawyers, you name it, Nigeria has it, and they have some of the best. As a matter of fact, they're the most educated group of people on the planet. So if this is the case, why are Nigerians suffering today? I have to ask myself, why are Nigerians killing each other? Why is all this going on? You know, it's very depressing. So if you can't get it in the media, if the media is not going to tell you about it, then why not put it in lyrical content? And so many Nigerian artists, you have some of the best artists. As far as I'm concerned, Nigeria have the best artists in the world. You haven't really heard good music until you hear some Nigerians play music. And I mean, from the children to the adults, they bring in a level of consciousness that most Americans can't even fathom, you know? So I'm somewhat disappointed because they keep following the same pattern, but then I guess it happens because when you have so little, and if the devil comes along and says, oh, I'm going to give you 5 coins of gold, but in order to receive these 5 coins of gold, you need to do A, B, C, and D. A, B, C, and D may not be good for you, but all you're looking at is the 5 gold coins. And it's we have to find a better way. That's all. We just have to find a better way.
And what would you say is the better way, ma'am?
Well, a better way is to take pride in Africa. Take pride in what you have. You know, Nigeria has some of the beautiful, most beautiful textiles. Your dress, not only your dress, your hair, the way African women used to do their hair. And that I did a song entitled Born Again that was written for me by Oramian. The original title was Go Die, but it had to do with the pride, how the African youth no longer took pride in Africa, but wanted to do the Western thing, not knowing the Westerns are copying you. You know, and the Chinese were very smart. The Chinese people went in and saw your beautiful cloth, your beads and all of that, and they may have gone and bought 1 or 2, but then they went back to their country, they copied everything you had, and then they turned around and sold it back to you. Just like Shell Oil and all of these different countries that come in, BP, they come in, they take your oil, they take your minerals.
Chevron and co.
They come in and they exploit you because they put a puppet at the head of the helm. Someone who with no sense to lead. And you know, a lot of people abused me on Facebook because I embraced Omoyele Sowore for running for president. And the reason why I embraced him, because Omoyele Sowore knows the truth. He knows how it's done in America. He knows that you can go and flip a switch and your light comes on. He knows you can turn a tap and you have water. Now, in 1969, Nigeria was having those problems. And NEPA. Why is Nigeria still having those problems today? You know, why is Nigeria? Why with all the automobiles in Nigeria and all the engineers, the mechanical engineers, the electrical engineers, the doctors, the lawyers, all that Nigeria has. Why is Nigeria in the shape she's in today? She has a nice little facade, I must say. But once you go behind that facade, as Femi told me the last time I was there, which 6 years ago, I said, oh, wow, Femi, they have malls and they have this and they have that and they have Lekki now. And he says, yeah, Sandra, that's the facade. Go behind the facade. I did. And the truth was revealed.
And you saw the real picture.
I did. And it shouldn't be that way. Not when the Western world cannot survive without Africa. You know, the West knows, the East knows. So why is it that the Africans don't know their worth? Why aren't they rocking the African fabrics? I mean, here in America, the conscious Black African American, we're trying to get African things. You know, we want the African fabric. We want the African jewelry. We want things from Africa. And the Africans are over there wearing Gucci, Louis Vuitton, and Balenciaga. You know, why? When you create, I mean, Africa has some of the best. You have shoes, you have jewelry, you have everything. Why are you copying?
Can I tell you something, Sandra? We Nigerians.
I'm listening.
We Nigerians are some of the best models for the Versace's, the Yves Saint Laurent's, the Tommy Hilfigers of this world. I used to be like that until one of my African sisters said to me, Babania, that's the nickname they call me, you need to brand yourself. You need to brand yourself and you need to change. And I said, okay, I can do that. And I sat down and thought about it for a while. And I ended up calling my tailor in Nigeria and saying to him, from now on, I'm going to be wearing these tops. No more Tommy Hilfiger for us. No more Louis Vuittons, no more Versace's, no more Yves Saint Laurent's, no more. And since then, I've been doing this. And guess what? Some of my white friends and white colleagues here, they're in the United Kingdom. They get my tailor in the suburbs of Ikeja in Nigeria, making fabrics and sewing attires for them. Honey, we can turn it right on its head. And another thing I want to say about us Nigerians, recently, with all this new variant of this COVID-19, Omicron, they immediately went and put some nations on the blacklist. And Nigeria was one of them. And literally all the countries put on the blacklist are African countries. And then Nigerians stopped traveling. And within days, they reversed the decision. They know how much they make per hour on Nigerian routes and African routes, especially Nigerian routes.
Exactly.
We saw on social media a very short video clip making rounds of just 2 passengers on a Virgin airline flight. 2 passengers. And that really shook the world. So we can make the change. We can make the impression. If we decide that we're not having this, we know how to say no. For some weird reason, I just don't know why. I don't know why we cannot just say no to these leaders and get rid of them. Like Bob Marley said, chase the crazy bald heads out of the yard.
Thank you. DJ, I want you to know, DJ Jossy,
Yes,
that the power is with the people. The power has always been with the people. That was one of the mottos of the Panther Party. Power is with the people. The people have the power. Do you realize that if the people collectively said, if this change is not made, we're not buying Shell anymore. We're not buying Chevron anymore. We're not buying BP anymore. Nigeria is an oil producing nation. So why aren't those refineries working? Nigeria has some of the best engineers in the world. Why aren't you manufacturing and buying your own cars? Nigeria has plenty of water. Why aren't the power plants working to provide electricity 24 hours? And even so now, there's solar power. Even Akon has bought solar power to Senegal. Why
yes,
can't
yes.
we make change?
And unfortunately, it took Akon, an individual who is not in politics, to do that to his people.
You know, a musician.
Which is shameful for a country with a leadership, a country with an on-seat government, to having to rely on one individual to carry out its duties towards a citizen. It's despicable. It really is poor. If you look all over the world today, in the entertainment industry, it is the youths of today that are now putting our country on the map, on the good map, that is. Our politicians are putting our country on the bad map,
Right.
on the bad global map. But there's the youths, the actors and actresses, just in the entertainment industry and sporting industry, that are putting our country on the good map. A lot of athletes and sporting personalities today with Nigerian names, and they have Nigerian roots, Nigerian parentage, but they're representing so many different countries around the world. It's a shame. But what choice do they have? Because they cannot represent their country. It's just this is a very sad story. It's a sad tale.
Very.
Without taking too much of your time, because we've had you for well over an hour now, I'm going to ask you to give advice to our African women and our African youth. What advice do you give us? In fact, let me make it generalized. Our African women, our African youth, and our African people. We need to learn from people like you how to fight for our rights or how to make the change.
Well, you know, I have a motto: where it happens is where it takes place. And I think Dakori Akande is doing a good job there in Nigeria. There are plenty of African women in Nigeria that's bringing it to the forefront. And I love the fight that Dakori Akande is doing. She's doing an excellent job. She happens to be a very, very dear friend of mine. Also, from the country of Chad, Natalie Biaznel. These are women. These women, you know, I find that usually if it's a fight to be had, it's those women that are going to stand up and fight. And Dr. Kwa Arakanda Chiombo Kwa, I may have messed up her name, but Dr. Kwa is definitely on point. Africa has some very strong women who are fighting for change. You know, I just want the mothers and the young women of Africa to keep their fight up, to take pride in themselves, to embrace their Blackness, because African women are beautiful. They have the best of everything there in Africa, you know, and it's now is the time to emulate that, show the rest of the world. And I also have to mention Peter Lentini here in America. He was doing, before this shutdown happened, every year he was presenting the Ankara Festival, African fashion show, representing all the different countries of Africa. So when we recognize ourselves and we fall in love with ourselves and stop embracing other cultures, we will do better. And I don't know, but here in America, women are trying to be more like Black women. You know, they're going in to get the lip fillers, to get the butt implants. They're doing all of these things because they recognize the beauty of the beautiful Black women throughout the diaspora. Whereas before, we didn't have that, but there's no excuses now. And I just like to leave, you know, I know you're winding down, and say this. Remember, for our religious people and, you know, those that are, you know, following a religious doctrine, know this: there's 7 deadly sins and 10 commandments. So if you practice or the 10 commandments and stay away from the 7 deadly sins, you don't have to be going to church every Sunday, giving your money to whoever you're giving it to. Oh, and that's another thing. Tithing is this. It's 3 things. You give of your time, you give of your talent, and you give of your treasure. So if you help your neighbor because your neighbor needed some assistance, that's tithing. If you make a donation to someone in need and you give them money, that's tithing. That's your treasure. If, like you today and I, we are speaking, we are giving of our talent, we are tithing. And we do it from our heart. We do it from a pure, positive location. We don't do this for greed or personal gain.
Fantastic. Thank you ever so much. And just to round up, are we expecting an EP soon? Are we expecting a Nigerian tour? Make sure you send WAZOBIA an invitation for that Nigerian tour. I know that it's going to happen at some point. It's something shaking up, it's something cooking in the background. A collaboration with Fela or Shehu. Let us know about it. Do you want to let a little bit of the cat out of the bag right now?
Well, anyway, in the meantime, if you need to know more about the personal relationship with Fela and what I went through, here's my book entitled Fela and Me. Now, Fela and Me was published there in Nigeria with Craft Books. In the Western world, I'm the only one that, you know, you can only get those copies through me, or in Nigeria from Craft Books. The music, yes, and I am working on a project now with Ida King. Ida King is a young Nigerian who was, I believe Ida was born here in America. So I intend to do a collaboration with her. Also, Captain E, who's a young Nigerian man. Actually, he's the actress Omotola. I'm not going to mess up her last name, but Omotola. I'm not even going to try. Yes, Ikede.
Yeah.
Almost Sexy. It's her son. Her children are incredible in the things that they do. They're all of them. One of them is into fashion. So I try to help and work with my African family, you know, and um, I can be reached at sandraizsadore.com for the book. You can, like you say, you can Google me. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, which I don't really know how to use. I'm on all social medias, but you know, it's up to us to make the positive change in this world. And I just want to work with the youth. You know, when these old people decide, and when I say old people, I'm in that number too, but at least I know how to listen to the youth because that's why we have children. Our children are our future. Our children are the ones that we teach to carry us forward, you know? And as Bob Marley once said, once a man, twice a child. Well, that's true. So it's now time for the elders to hand over that gauntlet to the youth and let them move this forward. And once again, if I could vote in Nigeria, my vote would be for Omoyele Sowore as president. I would not let tribalism and nepotism and all those isms get in the way of us moving forward and collectively as a nation.
Thank you very much. Just for people who don't know, there's another name that Sandra has that is Akonpe.
Yes,
Am I correct?
you are absolutely correct. Fella gave me that.
And do you know why I'm correct? That is my lovely mother's name.
Really?
Yes, you're my mother's namesake. My mother's name is Akonpe, which is a
Ah,
very, very precious name. It means when you touch somebody, you touch and you spoil. If you get in contact with the person that you get in contact with, and you spoil with everything good. So that is a very good name, and that is my mother's name. So without much ado, thank you very much indeed. I think this was part one. We're gonna have to do a part two because there's so much we needed to talk about that we haven't even spoken about. We might arrange a part two to discuss the book. I haven't read the book, but I know that I will contact you after this show. I must get a copy. I must read that book. That
all
book,
right.
I am so looking forward to it. Thank you very much. We normally do our program in Pidgin English, but we have to make an exception for you because
Well, well, I can understand Pigeon. I just I know they speak very well.
how you speak and pass other people self. We call themselves Nigeria. How did singing in Pidgin, how did you cope with that? Was that hectic?
It was Colombo, you know, who is now an ancestor. Colombo worked with me right there in Fella's house at 14A Agege Motor Road before Obasanjo and
Smashed it.
yes, and Buhari. I mean, you know, I don't even want to go there because then we would get into a political discussion,
Absolutely.
and you know, and I've already been threatened, you know,
Well,
because of the things.
we don't do politics on the program as well. We don't do religion. We don't do politics. We just do community. We
Mm,
work with our community and we do stuff for our community. And what you've done from 6,000, 7,000 miles away or even more for my community, is what me inviting you to this program. Out of respect.
I'm
Out of
not gonna
respect.
stop. I'm not gonna stop because
Thank you so much.
Nigeria is in me.
Don't worry. In the next, who knows, next 4 or 5 years, Nigeria may have made a complete U-turn, become the paradise of the world, and you will have your mansion in Lekki, and we will be visiting you every time we come to Nigeria.
Well,
How about that?
I look forward to the day that Nigeria stands on her own and the world knows how great she is.
Thank you so much, man. Have a nice one. Ladies and gentlemen,
Thank
it's been Sandra Izsadore that we've been speaking to. Sandra Izsadore, who is proudly African and extremely Nigerian. It's a real pleasure to speak to you today. And please, by all means, have you done the launch for the book?
We did the launch actually 2020. It was February 2nd, 2020. And then we did the launch. We had other things planned for the book, different dates. All of that had to be canceled due to COVID. And since that time, COVID, you know, it's almost like a conspiracy to stop truth from coming forward. That's what COVID has been. It seems as though all truth has been suppressed under COVID.
Thank you
But
very much.
DJ Jossy, I want to thank you for having me here with you. Yeah, thank you, DJ Jossy. You know, for having me here so that I can speak to my Nigerian brothers and sisters, and even my brothers and sisters in Brazil, in Cuba, throughout the diaspora. You know, we are one people. We have to recognize ourselves as one, and we must line up behind that one and make that one strong.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure interviewing the legendary Sandra Izsadore. It's a great pleasure to have interviewed you today. I'm buzzing actually. Have a very happy new year. And by the grace of God, we will be interviewing you some more times. We really enjoyed your company. Thank you so much, ma'am. Have a wonderful. Thank you. Bye-bye now. You can log out now when you're ready. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. We have to go now. And next week, please be ready to meet another one of our very special guests. And this time around, it will be in Pidgin. Thank you.